Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Silent Hill podcast. I just realized I haven't done one of these in a couple of weeks. I guess my vacation there to Vegas kind of threw me off, and then coming back, I was wrapping up some of the other cryptids and then starting on the urban legend stuff. So I'm going to be working on some more Silent Hill podcasts as well. So be on the lookout for those. This one, I'm going to continue with the next creature encountered within the first Silent Hill game. And this is actually right after encountering the Bloodsucker within the game itself. And it has to do with a creature known as the Puppet Doctor, which you'll see a picture of here. Very reminiscent, of course, of the Puppet Nurse, also found within the same level as the Bloodsucker and the Puppet Nurse as well. So what is the Puppet Doctor? Basically, it's the same thing as the Puppet Nurse. It's a creature of some sort that, like a parasite, that is infesting the back of the doctor. So instead of it being a nurse, in this case now, they are male doctors themselves. And because they're larger and essentially men, they have a stronger set of attacks than the puppet nurses themselves. The key difference, though, is that whenever you fight them in the game, they seem to be much slower than the puppet nurses. This parasite is the same exact thing as the one on the puppet nurse, no different. It still it has the same look, it moves the same way, it throbs the same way. And so whatever is infesting this puppet doctor is no different than the nurse itself. The doctors come in several types of gear, I guess you could call it. Some of them wear traditional hospital gear, like a white lab coat. Some of them have ties as well. And they pretty much just come on board whenever they sense or they see Harry within the game. They'll come at him, and they usually have a knife with them, and then they'll attack with that knife. There are fewer doctors in the game itself than the nurses. In fact, apparently they only appear on one floor, the first floor itself. And whenever they sight Harry, or whenever you come into the level, they make their presence known by also emitting some kind of loud groaning noise, much like the nurses did a little earlier in the game itself. Their noise is a little bit different, though. It seems like it's lower, obviously because they're male. It seems like their voice is a little bit lower, and then they'll also do some kind of different noise whenever they die. It seems to be like some kind of longer moan or some kind of longer sigh. So what do those doctors represent? Well, much like the same way as the nurses, they represent the staff that was within the hospital whenever Alessa was brought on board after her injuries. And so much like with the nurses and how they were swallowed into the world of Silent Hill as part of Alessa's revenge. Same concept, but this time involving the doctors. So there could have been some, let's say, innocent doctors there that were not necessarily doing anything harmful to Alessa directly, but maybe because they didn't act upon the stuff that was happening to Alessa and try to protect her, then maybe that's why they were swallowed. Or some of them just could have been innocent pawns altogether, not having a clue what was going on, but just by happen chance, they happen to be placed within that world. And then, of course, there are the doctors themselves that are 100% guilty for continuing to keep Alessa's torment going forward. Because apparently there's some kind of device, like a drug of some sort, that keeps the cult within Silent Hill hooked. And at the same time, it's something where it keeps Alessa's, I guess, status alive throughout the game as well. They could also represent the main doctor within the game itself, a guy by the name of Michael Kaufman. I finally saw a preview, or I guess you could call it a cutscene, of Michael Kaufman whenever Harry first encounters him, and I haven't seen much of him thereafter yet, but no doubt he's going to be appearing later on in the game itself. But they could also essentially represent her hatred of what he's done to her, and so she makes these male doctors become her part of hatred. Like she makes them become the thing that she wishes would have happened to Michael Kaufman. So pretty interesting stuff. Also, what's interesting is that these doctors, unlike the nurses, this is the only time really encountered within the Silent Hill franchise. They did not appear in any of the other games, no part 2, 3, or 4, or any of the other games that came out thereafter. The closest thing that the doctors appeared in was in a little smaller game called Silent Hill Mobile, which you'll see a picture of here. and this was the only time they were found. Obviously, with the nature of the nurses taking on a whole different role by the second game, taking on a much more sexier appearance and becoming much more iconic, the nurses definitely took over what became of like a recurring character within the franchise, while the doctors were pretty much placed on the wayside, which kind of makes sense. Again, considering most of the audience in Silent Hill and in games in general are going to be young males, they'll be much more attracted to seeing, let's say, sexy nurses rather than doctors as the main villains. So that's why it seems to be a continuing mantra of having the nurses rather than the doctors. But it would have been interesting to see how they played out within some of the other games thereafter. They don't even make an appearance within anything else, like let's say the comics or let's say the films. Anything else as far as their only sole appearance, it just remains within this first game. That's why there's not much material to talk about here other than what I've just described. The best way to defeat these doctors is pretty much the same way as you do with the nurses. Wait until they attack, and then because they move a lot slower, you can easily just gauge in and then just start pouncing on them. In fact, it's recommended to use a hammer because it's relatively easy to beat them. You don't even have to waste ammo on them. All you have to do is just wait for the right opportunity and then use that giant club melee to just wail on them, and then it won't take long until they are destroyed. And then, of course, as always, once they're done, be sure to step on that parasite so that way they are fully destroyed there as well. So what do you guys think? The Puppet Doctor, one of the more lesser known villains within the Silent Hill franchise. Again, only one instance of them appearing just within the first game, this one here, and then that's it. And any other appearances thereafter, nothing that we know of yet. Who knows? They could appear sometime in the future. Maybe somebody will bring them back. Maybe with Konami focusing on more mobile games, that's pretty much their main mantra going forward. Because these puppet doctors appeared in the Silent Hill mobile game, maybe now we're going to have a chance to see them yet again in future mobile games. So, alright everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.